Our next speaker is going to be Nolan Bushnell. Nolan has been a feature of my career, actually, and in my kind of attempts at entrepreneurship, which have not got anywhere close to Nolan's, but at various parts of my sort of 20-odd years career, Nolan has popped up now and again. So when I thought about putting together this conference, the first one for the game-based learning, I couldn't think of anyone better, really, than the guy that's affectionately known and regarded as the father of the video game industry. Just this month, actually, by coincidence, Nolan was awarded the BAFTA Fellowship Award. And for those who follow those things, will recognize that that is the highest award that BAFTA bestows. People such as Alfred Hitchcock have received it. Last year was Anthony Hopkins, and this year was Nolan Bushnell. And that shows how the video game industry in general has now eclipsed the film and television industries, and also demonstrates and shows the sheer contribution that Nolan has made to this industry. It's not an ordinary story, Nolan's life. So extraordinary, this speech can't really do it justice. And in fact, a career that's been illuminated with such crazy ideas, fierce determination, entrepreneurship, so unique that there's a Hollywood film that's being made at the moment with Leonardo DiCaprio playing the part of Nolan. So rather than me just prattle on about my speech, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a video which I stole from BAFTA, which introduced him for the BAFTA award. So if we could just run the video, that'll say much more than I can.
Nolan Bushnell's first foray into game design was with his friend Ted Dabney. Together they designed and produced the world's first commercially distributed coin-operated video game. Released in 1971, Computer Space was, for its time, a technological marvel, but complicated to play.
Computer Space, your first game, really didn't take off, really wasn't terribly successful. What was the cause of that?
Well, I loved it, all my friends loved it, but all my friends were engineers. It was very difficult to use Newton's first law. It was one of those games which was very difficult to play. It took a relatively high technical background.
The two then discovered a key rule of game design. If you want to enjoy mass success, keep it simple. In 1972, they founded Atari, and with their first employee, engineer Alan Alcorn, turned the simple game of tennis into a new game design.
Pong, invented by Atari. Now at last you can play at home.
From the very start, you goaded, bribed, or challenged me to go way beyond my limits. You demanded that I create a home version of Pong on a chip, in spite of the fact that we had no manufacturing capacity, no experience with consumer electronics, no semiconductor capacity, money, or market for the product.
How much money did it take, did you put into Atari to begin that company?
$250. And it was...
This was in 1972?
Yeah, I mean, inflation has taken its toll.
Pong was video gaming's first true blockbuster. A black and white TV, 2 analog paddles, monaural sound, and the simple instruction, avoid missing ball for high score. These simple elements combined to form one of the most iconic video games ever, and the basis for the industry as it is today.
In some sense, he caused this technology to enter the world many years ahead of when it probably normally would have. When you look at the early games he did, things like Computer Space and Pong, he was doing this before the invention of the microprocessor. He was doing this with dedicated logic.
Atari went on to develop a home video games machine, the first to feature a novel new controller device that they nicknamed a joystick. The result, the Atari Video Computer System, or VCS, became the world's first truly mass-market home console.
The Atari Video Computer System, $129.84 at Toys R Us.
You know, for the first time, millions of people in an affordable box had access to electronic technology. And what was interesting is he took this high technology into the realm of entertainment and made it basically accessible to everybody.
Who's for Atari? Pac-Man, Missile Command, Super Breakout, that's where the action is. All linked up, young man? Just a moment. Right, anyone for Haunted House? You have to be fast on your feet for this. Oh, don't say that. I want to show you tap dancing next.
In 1977, Nolan began an interactive entertainment vision he could combine with his other great loves, fast food and robots. Pizza Time Theater, featuring a giant robotic mouse called Chuck E. Cheese, was the first family restaurant to integrate food, animated robotic characters, and an indoor arcade, designed by Nolan as a way to play video games in a fun family environment. Chuck E. Cheese's eventually opened 500 entertainment centers across America and is still today a thriving business.
Smile, America, say Chuck E. Cheese.
I know that video games are good for you. I mean,
They certainly have been for you.
Well, that's true.
Named by Newsweek magazine as one of the 50 men who changed America, he is affectionately known as the father of video games and is today actively involved in developing the games industry of tomorrow.
But we have some things in the lab that I think everyone will say, gee, wished I thought of that.
Great pleasure to introduce Mr. Nolan Bushnell.
It's really great to be here. What you don't realize with that sort of stuff is that I have attention deficit disorder. It's about 5 years. And every 5 years I try to do something else. And so today I'm going to announce my foray into education. And it's called the SNAP education system. And hopefully it's going to be just a little bit disruptive. Johnny goes to school his first day. And the teacher says, Johnny, do you know the difference between ignorance and apathy? And Johnny says, I don't know, and I don't care. She says, you're right. Unfortunately, ignorance and apathy are our enemies as much as anything else in our lives. Because in some ways, apathy is worse, because when you don't care, you don't learn. Being engaged is really the important thing. About 40 years ago, schools with classrooms almost worked. I don't think they do anymore. This is a picture of education in the United States in about the 1850s and last year. Not much has changed. School was the most important and interesting thing that was happening in town. School was a porthole into the rest of the world. It was fascinating. Kids could hardly wait to get old enough to go to school. And yeah, we'd play hooky once in a while, but in general, school was cool. Because the alternative was watching the corn grow or the river flow. That isn't what we face today. Right now, school, books, not interesting. Because we've got other more exciting things. We've got video games, we've got movies, we've got television. Look at the costs difference. Now, you can say, well, costs don't matter, but production values do. And an immature mind can't tell the difference between a crappy idea with good production values and a great idea with bad production values. A classroom costs about $30 an hour to run. these other media types have such tremendous production values. Crisp sound, dynamic color balancing, motion, direction, production. How do you compete? If you want your TV ratings to go to zero, just put a 16-year-old in front of a talking head. There they have the choice. They can choose to not watch. What do you think's happening in your classroom? This is a rough approximation of the allocation of time in a typical high school classroom. Notice the great big piece of cheese here. This is discipline. Discipline is really, really, really boring. She can't compete. No matter how good she is, no matter how good he is, the competition for the minds of kids is not sufficient. We have to have more than talking heads. So I want to assert that we want no more classrooms. Classrooms have been obsolete for 12 years and should be abolished. Gone, get rid of them. It's going to really, really piss some of you guys off. But it's necessary. Classrooms do not work. They can't work. A one-to-many distribution of information has a lot of problems. The first one is pace. Everybody learns at a different speed. You have one person being taught, we'll call that the resonance kid. That's the kid that's resonating with the teacher. The other half of the class is lost. The other half of the class is bored. Not going fast enough, going too fast. The only way you can solve that is by decreasing this class size. What's the ideal class size? 1. But you have a problem now. How do you have a single teacher and a single student? It's by changing the roles. And a teacher in the future, a teacher in my future, and I believe that my future is your future in 10 years. I'm a little bit arrogant, but I believe that everybody will come around. It doesn't happen all quickly. But I believe that the benefits of computer-aided education, game-based education, putting teachers in the roles of mentors and dealing with help on a one-to-one basis is the way that we fix things. A little revolutionary, but it makes sense. By using computer-aided education and games, kids run at their pace that is best for them. And that makes everybody a success. This is an actual study. Since I've been going about 10 minutes, I figure we're down to about 50% of you. So I should come up with another joke or a test or something like that. But the problem is, most of the classroom, as you can see, less than a third, and it gets down to 25% of the class paying attention. That's really, really inefficient. What if we were to have a school that has some kind of feedback every 3 minutes, every 2 minutes? That requires everybody, the maximum that they can daydream is 3 minutes. We can do that with our computer-aided education. You can't do it in a classroom. It just does not work. Don't forget that disruption is something that happens in classrooms. It doesn't really happen one-on-one. Because why is disruption important? Or why does it happen? It's because in most schools, you get a certain amount of social benefit by being a disruptive student. You know, and it happens. You're not going to get rid of it unless you get rid of the classroom. So what's the teacher relationship with the student? Think of it as webcams and mission control. So you have a teacher sitting in a cubicle 2 or 3 cubicles down, watching the students' progress electronically, and helping and intervening when the child is struggling with something. Conversely, if the child is having a problem with a particular module, they can push a button and get some help. So again, the relationship between the student and the teacher, one-on-one. Why not have our schools look like this? It's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but why not have some really, really, really great science mentors helping the kids who are really excelling? Why not have some really powerful teachers who are good at remedial reading skills? All of these people network together on an open source to create a powerful web of skills. Why not learn Chinese from a national Chinese, somebody who's sitting in an office somewhere in Beijing? The web isn't being used properly. What should a school be? It should be exciting and interesting, learn skills that can be used, teach about life's options, focus on the individual. Individual focus is the thing that makes the new school really be powerful. What about self-esteem? We have a problem. Half of the students are below average. Think about it. Half of the students are below average. How do you give them self-esteem? Well, you trick them. It's not an obvious trick, but it's a situation where not everyone who is below average believes they're below average. And they don't need to believe that. And in fact, what we do is we parse things so that everybody has something that they excel at. And a classroom, by its nature, is a homogenizer. It homogenizes the group. By having individual lessons, kids can't see how fast little Johnny is going, how slow little Martha is going. And so the relative educational success is hidden from each other. And that's an important thing for self-esteem, because you really want the kids to end up being optimistic, and that's really the key. You cannot succeed unless you try to succeed. And self-esteem is the underpinning of how we can get optimism. Optimism is the underpinning of what it takes to succeed. You have to do that individually. You cannot do it collectively. Collectively, the people, the half of the population that's below average, in the collective, figure it out. And it's not good. The main problem with disruption is that it's very boring. There was a group of graduate students at Columbia University who decided to shadow kids in a school that had an extremely high dropout rate. And they wanted to find out why kids were dropping out. And they came back with their eyes wide open. not about the fact that there was such a high dropout rate. They couldn't believe that it wasn't higher. They calculated that in this particular school that less than 10% of the time was spent on actual curriculum, and the rest of it was in some kind of discipline or quieting down the classroom from the chaos that was happening in the New York public school system. This is not an environment that works. A lot of people say parents are the key. My students who have good parents are really great. We cannot rely on that. We have to give kids the opportunity to excel in spite of their parents. Otherwise, we have a death spiral of a permanent underclass. We have to get the kids who are currently in the underclass out of the underclass, and we need to do it as quickly as they can. And so we can't rely on parents. The schools have to step up and solve this problem. Part of it is music and art. Turns out that the computer does a pretty good job. It's a very short step from Dance Dance Revolution to actual dancing. It's coordination. It's a very short step from Guitar Hero. Now, did you ever stop to think, has anybody heard of three-chord songs? It turns out that you can do almost any folk song if you know 3 chords on a guitar. It's pretty cool. 3 chords, you're a guitar player. I did that for years and years. And what you can do is you can go from Guitar Hero, in which you learn how to strum and push the buttons, to turning these buttons into the 3 chords, and all of a sudden you can turn people into a folk singer. And then getting rid of the buttons and turning them into the 3 chords, and all of a sudden you have kids that can play the guitar. Every kid should know how to play the 3 chords to make a guitar. Now, if you want to get really good, you need 10, 20, 30 guitar chords and all kinds of strumming techniques. But you'd be surprised how far you can go with your 3 chords. Art is pretty cool. Some of the game programs right now, the authoring systems, you can create worlds, virtual worlds, with very little technical skill, where your art, your eye, your taste become dominant. One of the problems with the creative arts is that we can envision something in our brain, but getting it onto the paper is quite stressful because of our talent. The computer-aided design allows a really wonderful outcome of translating this vision in your mind, and that's really where the creative process is. And so using these tools, we can teach kids to be creative in new ways without necessarily having to struggle with the inner meaning. If they want to later go on and find out how to do oil paints and the other things, they can do it, but it's not necessary. I think everyone should be able to make a film. I think filmmaking today is every bit as important as writing and experimentation. It's a communication form. And I believe that in the next 20 years, there will be room for 20 times as many actors and producers and directors, just because the cost of producing a film is just plummeting. And let 1,000 million flowers bloom, and the web will give you a distribution. It's going to be hard to be Tom Cruise and get 20 million of film, but there'll be a lot of people who will be able to make a good sitcom in their garage and make a few $100,000 a year. And it's starting to happen right now on YouTube. I believe everybody needs manual skills. You need to be able to hang a picture, fix the plumbing, change a light switch. These are the kinds of things that once we get the discipline and the problems with schools fixed, that we can spend some time on. All of these things are a part of a curriculum that makes a whole person. Let's talk for a minute about teacher resonance. There was a study done, it was called the Perfect Teacher Program. It was about 15 years ago. And I know about it because they asked me, and they said, who was your favorite teacher? And to me, that was very, very obvious. It was Mrs. Cook in the 3rd grade. Mrs. Cook loved science, and she had a magic box in the closet that was the science box. And she would assign one kid to get to play with the science box and then present it to the class. She taught me for the module on electricity. And I got to play with the magic science box. I hooked up the batteries to the electromagnets and light switches and lights and switches and showed the class. And I was so smitten that I went home that night and put up the card table in the middle of the room, in the corner of my bedroom, got every piece of wire and light switch and flashlight in the house, and started tinkering, and I never stopped. So, Mrs. Cook was my favorite school teacher. She changed my life. Well, when they went back and tried to understand more about what Mrs. Cook did, because Nolan Bushnell said Mrs. Cook was the best teacher, it turns out that they asked some of the other classmates of mine what they liked about Mrs. Cook, and lo and behold, what they find. They found that Mrs. Cook was not their favorite teacher, it was their least favorite teacher. Now, how could my favorite teacher be the worst teacher for somebody else? It's because Mrs. Cook and I resonated. And so one of the things we have to do is make sure that the kids resonate with the teacher. And how is that? Using this webcam virtuality, some kids have problems with adult male figures. Some of them have problems with female power figures. Maybe a particular kid, as a teacher, as a help, would feel much better with a bunny rabbit. Person on the other side, but they don't need to know it. I mean, I'm sure that there's some of you guys here that go online as a 22-year-old hot lady when in fact you're a 60-year-old white male. On the web, you can change your identity. And to be the proper teacher model for the student, I believe, is an important thing. I think you need to write every hour. Writing is really important, and you don't have to write a lot, but I think you need to write a lot, or every hour. And you say, well, how can that work? And you say, well, we also want it corrected within 10 minutes. And how do you do that? Well, we have the web. And I believe that the market clearing price to correct a page of text is about 3 cents. Why do kids not write now? It's because in a high school, in California, the average class size in high school is about 35. So an English teacher will have 5 classes of 35. Every time he assigns a paper homework, it's a lost weekend. Correcting the papers is really, really tough. It's just a time consuming. This is the start of a new adventure for me, and there's a whole bunch of other little small ideas, but I've sort of put over the top ones, and we'll see in a couple of years whether or not we're going to change the world. Remember, innovation takes a long time to adopt. This thing works perfectly. It'll take 10 years to get it into the school system. So you got a little bit of time. I think it's time for a little disruption of the school system. But it's in the system, not in the classroom. Thanks.
I know we're keen to have a little coffee, but just thought it would be nice, as we've got Nolan on the stage here, just to put him down on a few things, because I think there were some quite provocative, quite controversial statements that were made there, and I can feel a little bit of a buzz, and certainly I've been looking at the Twitter feed, which will be going up here, and there's all kinds of comments being made. So can we have some questions, please? Gentleman in the front. So excuse me, just wait for the microphone, please. No, hold on, please. Can you wait for the microphone? And when you're at the microphone, if you could announce your name and your organisation. Thank you.
Raymond Laren. Can you hear me?
No.
Raymond Laren. Why do you call it Snap, Nolan?
You know, one of the hardest things to do is name something. And when I think of what I want, how I want kids to learn, I want them to learn in snap. And it's, you know, it's a nice verb, and it's got, you know, it's 4 letters, and I think I can get some good graphics done around it. I just like the whole idea of something being snappy. It's, you know, it's got some energy to it, and you know, and it may not last. You know, it's one of those things that in general, the names that I start with are never the ones that I end up with. But incidentally, does anybody know why Chuck E. Cheese was named Chuck E. Cheese? It's because I wanted a name that you couldn't say without smiling. Chuck E. Cheese. Anyway, I'm not sure if that was very satisfying, but.
Gentleman in the back.
Simon Lumb from the BBC. If you change the way children learn and you can create this incredible environment for them to be educated, does that not mean you're going to have to change the workplace as well? Because everything's going to come crashing down back to an office at some point after this incredible learning experience.
I believe that the office will follow any changes in the school. In some ways, we're actually making school resemble more the way the offices are today. I mean, most people work today in a cubicle, and kids are in a classroom. I think kids should be mostly in a cubicle and not in a classroom. I believe that once you get rid of the classroom, just a massive number of problems with schools go away. What we really want, whether it's in school or in work, is we want efficiency. And things that work tend to stifle things that don't work over time.
Hi, my name's Dawn Halliburn. I'm a teacher. I actually use games-based learning in classrooms. I'm also a parent, and the thought of individual pods scare me as both a teacher and a parent. Someone once said that no man is an island. So with these pods, where do you see social skills and collaboration taking place?
I didn't understand anything on that.
Can you repeat the question?
Sorry. I just want to know where you see social skills and collaboration taking place within your individual pods.
Social skills. Social skills and collaboration within your pods.
Oh, the social skills. Remember that we have a very, very loose environment. We have break areas, and kids will have once they get certain levels of privileges, be able to get up and walk around and collaborate with their friends and create a lot of social skills. There are certain things that group discussion, it really, really helps. And for that, we have a hypermedia classroom. And the hypermedia classroom is is different than a regular classroom in that everybody has headphones, full over-the-ear headphones, and a boom mic. So the objective is to make it very, very difficult for a disruptor to get a stage. So the teacher has, in these class discussion things, probably never more than 12, 13 kids, the ability to completely control the interactive dialogue between the kids. And the only way that somebody could be disruptive is if they can get everybody to take the headphones off. I'm very keen on focusing on the disruption issue. If I were to choose any single thing that is the most pernicious for education, it's the classroom disruption. In some cases, particularly in California urban areas, the disruption is so severe that there's virtually no learning going on. And so it just has to be tackled straight on and take no prisoners.
Gentleman at the far back.
Yeah, Lieutenant Alex Smith, Royal Navy. We've already built one of these classrooms on a ship, and it's working really well. We've got an open-based classroom with a blended solution. The problem that I had at the start was convincing the instructor that it wasn't just a didactic scenario anymore. They were allowed to social construct and allowed to interact. Where are you going to go with the training for your instructors who go in there? Whereas in the UK, I think it's historically about 3 or 4% of ICT implementation goes to training of the teacher.
If I understand, I think there's a combination of language and distance.
Yeah, I do the mic.
But I think that that the difficulty of change in any system is severe. Current teachers who want to do it exactly the way they've done it forever will probably be shunted aside. I mean, the reality is that teachers, like everybody else, need to be able to adapt to the most current best practices. Once we show best practices, then we should be able to force adoption. Until we have proof of efficacy, we're just another theory. But once you have proof, then it's up to government to force change, and I believe that can happen. And it sounds like a lot of these things that you've tried have been working well, but you've had some problems with integrating it into your current staff, and that'll be always a problem. I mean, isn't England famous for the Luddites? I don't know, something like that.
You raise that one in the coffee break.
Right.
Last question. I think there was somebody in over here.
Hi, hello. Dr. Emilios Lomoniatis from the Tavistock Clinic. I found your concept quite challenging, and I often like challenging concepts, but you started off with the premise that watching corn grow or watching rivers flow is boring. And I was just wondering where the idea of nature might exist in your concept, because it was Einstein, perhaps one of the greatest thinkers, who once lying down and looking at the sun developed the idea of relativity, which has changed our world considerably.
There's no question that boredom properly channeled can lead to creative thought. had some of my bigger ideas when I've been totally at leisure. But in general, boredom can only go so far, and I can guarantee you that a cornfield is, in fact, at the end of the day, very boring. And I think that we can do a lot with nature, but today's paced world requires thicker stuff. And highly produced media, unfortunately, is probably is going to win over boredom. And you know, corn just doesn't grow that fast.
Okay. We're going to have to pull it to a close there. I'd like to thank Nolan. Thank you. Well done.